One of the biggest challenges business owners face when it comes to looking after their health and fitness is not knowing what to do when they travel. So many business owners who first join Built to Last are very good when they can control their environment from home, plan exactly what they're going to eat, when they're going to eat, get the perfect sessions in, obviously factor in decent amount of sleep. But when they first join, they don't know what to do when they travel. And I think this is a massive problem across the globe with business owners. And it can create that on it, off it mentality. If you can't do something perfect, you don't do it at all. And the reality is, if you are a business owner that travels, you need to learn to work with it rather than just accept that because you can't have the perfect weeks when you travel, for example, that you won't do nothing at all. I think the all or nothing mentality, as I've said many times on previous podcasts, is one of the single biggest reasons why business owners can't get and stay in shape, right? But with the right planning, the right level of thinking, and a bit more detail, you can certainly stay in shape irrelevant to your travel schedule. Inside Built to Last, we work with so many elite global business owners who are on planes frequently throughout the year. Like, I've got one client in particular, Mustafa, an absolute machine of a businessman. He's on a plane every fucking week pretty much, all right? And he has dropped best part of 40 pounds. He's 50 in the shape of his life, but he always finds a way to get his sessions in, get his movement in, and control his food as best he can, okay? So what I want to share with you in this episode of the Kirk Miller Podcast is 15 of my top tips for business travelers. Because sometimes as business owners, what we don't know, we don't know. And obviously with this podcast, I just want to open up as much awareness as possible and share with you as many insights, tips, tricks that have helped obviously many of our clients get in phenomenal shape irrelevant of their travel schedule, okay? So I'm just going to straight to it. Number one, and I may have said this before in previous podcasts, but I want this penny to drop, okay, if it hasn't already, if you've been a consistent listener. Number one is do one thing that serves your mind, body, or both first thing in the morning, right? Whether you are on the actual day of you traveling or you are actually in a hotel for multiple days, make sure you always start the day with a habit or ritual which is the catalyst for setting you up to the win. Even if you have an early day, of meetings, or you're on an early plane, do something, even if it's for 5 minutes minimum, that is doing something to protect your emotional state. Because I think the worst thing in the world when you are sort of through off schedule is then going into a reactive state where everything sort of goes out the window. And I'm sure if you're listening to this, if you've ever gone to shit with your food, or you've ate more food on a plane than you wanted to, or you've ate more food and or drink, maybe on a business trip, it's because you're in a reactive state from the morning. So as I've said on previous podcasts, do something which you know if you do that, puts you in a more controlled and proactive state for the rest of the day. Like, for example, for me, even if I'm traveling, I journal for 5 minutes. I remind myself of my why, a little bit of gratitude, and just really like refocus on what I need to do on that day as my priority task to make that day a success, okay? And make sure my actions and thoughts don't contradict that, okay? For a lot of you guys listening to this, that might simply be, especially if like your schedule is particularly busy when you travel, making sure that you move your body first thing in the morning, all right? The reality is most of your business meetings, if this relates to you, aren't going to kick off till 8, 9 o'clock anyway. So I think from my experience, having coached so many people in this position, everybody can move their body, even if it was like 20 minutes, first thing in the morning, all right? But do that one thing that is the catalyst for you feeling at your best. Because what you'll generally find, it's that Mark Twain sentence, you win the morning, you win the day. All right, and you might not always have the perfect hour, 2 hours, of course, in the morning, especially if you're traveling, but what is the one thing? Like, even for example, say you're at an airport early and you are a breakfast person, just to start off your day off strong, can you make sure that you're eating something healthy first thing? At least you can take a positive from the day to start with, all right? Number 2, have a look at your hotel gym if you're staying in a hotel before you travel, all right? So in advance then if you're potentially going to have to adapt your workouts, because sometimes, I know I've been this guy in the past, whenever I've traveled, mentally it sort of threw me off a little bit if I didn't have the perfect equipment that was in line with my usual workout. So then you just think, oh, fuck it. I can't lift as heavy as I normally do. I haven't got the perfect equipment. so you don't do it at all, or you have a half-hour session. Okay, so I know a lot of my guys have done this in the past. Whereas if you can take initiative and go, right, I know the hotel I'm going to be staying in well in advance. And I think anyone who says that they don't know is generally full of shit. You always know at least the night before what hotel you're going to be staying in, even if you got booked on travel last minute, okay? But forward think, have a look at the hotel, try and look on their website. They've got pictures. And again, I don't give a shit about calling up a hotel, to be honest, and saying, look, can I see some pictures of the gym if needed, all right? And even if your hotel hasn't got a decent gym, do some research in the area of where you're going to be staying to see if there's any gyms nearby, and try and forward think the logistics, of like, okay, how far is the closest gyms, and how can I organise my morning or your afternoon or at the end of your work day, if of course that's, when you train. But just do some research rather than just turning up at a certain hotel or place and go, I don't know where the gyms are, and then before you know it, because you haven't planned it and you're on a tight schedule, you just don't do it. Okay. Number 3, if you travel and you don't have a gym, you don't have any equipment, okay, don't use this as an excuse either. All right. One thing we urge with all our clients is make sure that, just to sort of anticipate any potential curveball or challenge, is pack resistance bands. It's amazing what you can do with decent resistant bands in terms of working your whole body. Because the reality is, we program full body, for example, with Inside Built to Last. You can do every single movement pattern: push, pull, hip hinge, squat, lunge, etc., overhead press with bands, and using backpacks also. Okay, and again, even though this isn't ideal, and I would always, of course, as do my clients, would rather have dumbbells, rather have barbells when you're lifting, but you doing something is better than nothing. Don't just down tools because you haven't got the perfect gym, the perfect equipment, all right? It's going to create that on it, off it mentality, and then usually if you're not getting your sessions in, you're going to then eat shit as well. Whereas if you can pack some resistance bands and go, right, looking at my usual sessions, how can I still get a press in? For example, you could load up your backpack. And obviously when you're going through customs, you can squeeze up to 20 kg or more in your backpack sometimes. When you're doing presses and you've got a backpack on you, like slower negatives, higher reps, even if you're having to adapt rep ranges, you're still going to get a great workout in your chest. Same with your back rows. You can do back rows with your backpacks, resistant bands, overhead presses with bands, backpack, lunges, generally anything lower body where you really load up a backpack, goblet squats, goblet lunges, even Romanian deadlifts with bands, backpacks. At least you're forward thinking and you're going to be able to just move that body and still stimulate all your major movement patterns. Even if you can't lift quite as much, you're going to feel better for doing it than not doing it. All right. And it just requires discipline and just managing your expectation, going, okay, I'm not going to make my optimal progress this week or weeks, depending on how long you're traveling for, because I haven't got the greatest equipment, but I'm still going to feel so much better through doing it than not doing it. And it's still going to control my energy output a little bit more. And you're probably going to have a better day through getting that workout in. Number 4, eat either at home or the airport before you fly. 99% of the time, plane food is shit. Even if you're in business or first class, it's heavily processed. It's probably been sat in certain cupboards or shelves for a hell of a long time, and it's generally not good for your gut. Okay, and I think even if you are flying in business or first class, don't worry about trying to get your money's worth. Like I say this to my clients as well, when they've gone all-inclusive holidays, and yes, you can obviously just out of habit say yes to all the plain food or yes to all that all-inclusive food, but if it's going to make you feel like shit afterwards, what's the trade-off? Are you actually doing it just out of habit, or are you better off just simply ignoring it and deciding to eat something before, because ultimately it's going to impact how you feel better the other side of the plane? Because I think so many people eat the plain food just simply out of habit because they pay for a flight and they think, okay, it's included, so I might as well eat it. And I think deep down, if you're trying to get a grip on your health and fitness goals and you're really trying to come out of your travel trips as a business owner, it's still in great shape, right? Then we do need to be a bit more disciplined with these things, okay? Because I've had a lot of clients before go, I've been at an airport, so I didn't know what to eat. every single client who works with us, as long as they know what airports they're at, we will actively research like what are their options. Like, and I always put myself, as do our coaches, put myself in the mind of the clients going, okay, if that was me at the airport, what would I eat, right, to get my protein in, get as much real food in as possible, so I'm not having to eat the shit on the plane, okay? And there's loads of options these days at 99% of airports, okay? There really is. All right, it's not perfect, might not be your perfectly prepped food, but you still can eat high quality food at most airports now. You know, your omelettes, your salmons, even places like Itsu and stuff, you know, these sushi places, like you can still have high protein food, you know, decent amount of good quality carbs, okay? But just forward think a little bit more. And depending on where you're flying and how long your flight is, if you've got a short flight, I would say you got a flight of anywhere from like, I don't know, 1 to 3 hours, maybe even 1 to 4 hours, could you eat something decent before you left your home? All right, that you're in total control of, all right, it's going to fill you up, okay, and then you can tick over on the plane maybe with, you know, some water and some fruit, nuts, etc., as I'll come on to in a second. Ironically, that's my next point. Number 5, okay, if you're on a longer flight, can you pack or buy like high quality shakes, nuts and fruit for the plane, all right? Or as an absolute sort of last resort, no added sugar protein bars. It's still going to be better than just sort of downing tools and opting for crisps, chocolate, just processed shit, you know, that won't even fill you up. It'll make you tired on the plane, okay? Do you know what I mean? So be forward thinking, because most major airports will have decent, high quality shakes. They will have nuts, they will have fruit. So even if you don't want to sort of bring them from home, you know, if you look actively enough at certain places within the airport, you will definitely find these, all right? And I think these are great options as well to travel. Say, for example, if you go into a hotel and you're not convinced that it has lots of great food options, I think if you can pack, you know, some nuts, some almonds, some cashews, etc., you know, some bananas, basically fruit that doesn't maybe need to be stored in a fridge, or even some shakes perhaps that can be stored at room temperature, it's still going to be able to keep your protein on point even when you're in hotels, etc. And they're just going to be healthier snacks than some hotel options. Number 6, stay busy, not bored on planes and trains. I think so many people, as I've sort of touched on, you know, a few minutes ago, they overeat on planes through boredom. Literally, it's mindless eating because they're not keeping their mind engaged on a plane. Now, of course, depending on the time of your flight, you know, you need to relax, you need to down tools, possibly get some sleep in. But if you're like me and you don't tend to sleep too well on planes, try and use the time productively, right? Especially when your plane is generally on airplane mode. I know I've got, you know, some amazing amount of work done over the years when my plane has been on, my phone has been on airplane mode, and I've just focused on like, you know, a high quality task that just naturally makes the time go by a little bit quicker, and more importantly, stops me from procrastinating and being bored and just naturally like eating shit food because I've got nothing else to do, okay? And this is so easily done on planes and trains. So stay, rather than busy, I suppose, stay being effective and productive, not bored, and just watch how much better you feel just by getting shit done on a plane or a train, okay? And then you're less likely to eat shit. Number 7, something simple but basic, a lot of people don't do. Drink more water on planes. I would buy more high quality bottled water before you get on a plane, because, you know, I was on a plane recently, on an Emirates flight, and yes, of course, you're getting water throughout the plane journey, but it's just small cups, where I think if you can be proactive, especially when you're on a, like I was the other day, a 7 to 8 hour plane journey, and you've got like, I don't know, 2-3 bottles of water. 1, it's going to keep you hydrated. 2, it's going to prevent hunger. And, you know, 3, you're taking control of one of your main core drivers, which is fundamental to like your cognitive function, let alone obviously overeating, okay? Well, preventing overeating. So drink more water on planes, because a lot of the time when we are reaching for food, we're not actually hungry, we're just dehydrated. Number 8, and this is getting more specifically to when you are actually maybe at your hotels or your destinations where you might be staying for 2-3 days or more, okay? And I may have said this before when I've sort of outlined these next 3 in particular, what high performers do, I think, that non-high performers don't do. And I think when you're traveling especially, if you want to get a grip on your food, your training, your movement, this is what you need to do. Number 8, don't end your workday without knowing when, where, what you're going to exercise and train the next day, okay? Otherwise, you're going to rely on motivation that you may or may not have in the morning of whether or not you're going to do it, all right? So decide as your last work task or as a minimum before you go to bed the next day, what am I actually going to train, right? What do I need, right? Do I need my bands? Do I need my backpack? Am I going to use the gym? Am I going to go for a run? Am I going to go for a walk? Okay, a bike ride, whatever it is you've got available, but at least if it's scheduled, you're more likely to get it done, okay? And these are the type of things, no doubt, you do when you're on your own home turf, but we just forget to do it when we're traveling and we're in hotels, all right? So take control. Number 9, similar principle. Don't end your work day without knowing when you're going to get your steps in the next day, when you're going to get your movement in. Because I know for a lot of my guys, when they're in back-to-back meetings, they might not be able to do the perfect 30, 40-minute walk or hour walk, for example, to get the steps in, but can they factor in some 5-10 minute walks at the end of certain meetings, which will accumulate to a large volume of steps, of course, as the day goes on? Can they factor in some steps on their lunch? Even if it's 10, 15 minutes before they get the food in, it's still taking control and getting your wins in, even when you can't have this perfect clean condition, right? I've had so many clients who've been able to do this, so if they can, you can. But it just takes a little bit more discipline of going, okay, within my day, when am I in fixed appointments where I physically can't move? And when am I not in fixed appointments when I can factor in some movement, even if it's just 5-minute pockets, all right? And for most people, when I've had a client who might have been stuck with this, right, they say, I couldn't get my steps and I was traveling, I've got business meetings. How many fucking times are you picking your phone up, right, and procrastinating and scrolling on social media? Because I think even if you're traveling, you're on business, okay, even if you're on a plane, like, you can still factor in movement every hour or so. It's good for your legs, good for circulation, and it's still going to add up. So whether you're in a hotel, you're on a plane, schedule, like, when you're going to get your movement in, and just notice how much better you feel, okay? And then the number 10, which is, again, similar principle in relation to food, and ultimately, this is the biggest thing that we really need to try and like forward think a lot more, and that is, don't end your work day without knowing when you're going to eat, where you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, and who you're going to be eating with, okay? Because a lot of us, I think, if we've habitually eaten with certain colleagues, business partners, or clients, and we associate when we travel with these people eating more food, drinking more excessively, we need to break the pattern of this, okay? And sometimes, if we don't like anticipate the potential like challenges, if we've like done things over and over again with this person in relation to food, booze, or both, celebrating a successful day or wine and dining certain clients, then we're just going to be in that, continual pattern of behavior. And if you don't want to do that, we need to forward think a little bit more. All right. So look at your day. At the end of each day, okay, where am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? Okay, what are the potential challenges? What options have I considered to help me eat better? Okay, how can I like mentally prepare certain conversations in my mind where you're actually strong enough to just tell people if you don't want to drink, or you don't want to drink as much as them, or you don't bow to peer pressure when it comes to eating desserts or whatever it may be, because so many times when we're at tables, we just bow to pressure, all right? So forward think as much as possible, right? When am I going to get my protein in the next day? How many times am I going to eat? And how do I want to mentally distribute my calories? Even if you're not tracking MyFitnessPal, all right? But just try and forward think, okay, as much as you can. Number 11, I think this is a no-brainer, not just even when you travel, but from my experience with most business owners, I generally think that most business owners, especially when you're traveling, you should save at least 50% of your calories for the evening. Generally, when you're traveling, you've probably got higher workload, you've probably got more meetings, schedule might be even tighter. So the foods you are generally consuming during the morning, at lunch, early afternoon, you're on so much of an autopilot mentality that you could be pretty much eating anything. You're probably not going to mentally register it as much, all right? And also at the end of a work day when you're traveling, especially, stress is going to be high overwhelm, your bandwidth will be shot, willpower shot to pieces, and that's when you're going to be more vulnerable, all right? And you're going to seek more reward in excessive foods, booze, and in most cases sugar as well, at the end of the day, all right? So how can you just manipulate your calories so you're saving more in the evening? Because when you're traveling, the likelihood is you're going to be eating at hotel restaurants or eating at like fancy restaurants, and you're not going to be in complete control of the way foods are cooked and the exact calories going in. So allow more buffer just to forward plan that as much as you can. All right. But if you're eating too many calories during the day, then you're lining yourself up for like calorie disaster really, and then you come back accumulating more excessive weight and pounds than deep down you wanted to from that trip. Okay, I suppose again some of these tie in together, but I just wanted to sort of magnify these and dummy proof them down as much as possible. But number 12, forward plan and pick your menus ahead of schedule. All right, and just stating the obvious I've said many times before, if you're trying to get a grip on your calories, okay, don't waste calories on sauces, dips, and excessive oils. Right, forward plan as much as you can. All right. So you would generally know, again, the night before, what restaurants you're going to be eating out the next day, whether it's a lunch menu, whether it's an evening menu, all right? But if we're just going to be reliant on what we're going to decide in that moment when we're sat at the table, especially if you're stressed and you're tired and you're a little bit overwhelmed from a heavy day, that will influence what you eat. Whereas at least if you can forward think a little bit more and go, okay, how can I be a bit more tactful off this menu without being boring and feeling socially awkward? Again, at least you've been proactive with your thinking and your decision making. All right. Number 13, speak to hotels in advance about any dietary requirements. If you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't ask, you don't get. And most hotels, right, they want repeat business. They want you there again, right? They want to build a long-term relationship with you. So if you can just be really direct with them and just say, look, I eat a certain way. I need to avoid X, Y, Z, whether it's dairy, whether it's added sugar. They will generally do their absolute best to help you. If you frame it in the right way, all right. But if you don't ask, you don't get. So speak to hotels in advance. Say for example, if there's a certain breakfast menu that you you want adjusting, or maybe if there was something that you saw on a menu that maybe wasn't in one set meal, but over 2 meals you saw like the carbs you wanted, the fats you wanted, the protein you wanted, they're over 2 meals, but just point blank ask them, saying, look, is there any way I can have this as part of one meal, and obviously adjust the cost accordingly. All right, might sound a bit OCD, but like ultimately you're listening to this because you want to probably look better, feel better, and take more control when you are traveling, right? Because I'm yet to meet a business owner who's really, really happy that they keep putting on weight because of travel. All right. So if this is you, then again, just take control and just speak up. I'm sure you've done it in every other aspect of your life when you've not been quite happy with something, or you just sort of wanted to be very clear with your expectations of a certain outcome. Number 14, this is more of a mindset thing, and this is, again, what I think high performers generally do, is have fun socially, at your networking, at your client meetings, whatever engagement is socially, have fun socially, but never at the expense of how you want to look, feel, or perform the next day. If you're waking up feeling like shattered, tired, obviously impacts your performance, your focus, and your mood, then ultimately it's going to contradict maybe the outcome of what that business trip is all about. Of course, I know sometimes we need to wine and dine clients, and in some industries, I've got some clients who have to do that. But a lot of the time, we bullshit ourselves with how far we need to go with this, right? We bullshit ourselves with how far we need to go with this. Ultimately, I think it shows a high level of confidence and leadership if you are in a certain peer group, when you are traveling, where you're just very direct about, what you want and what you don't want, okay? Because ultimately, I think true high performers are business leaders. That one of the things that separates them is how they look after their energy, their physical energy, their mental energy. All right. So have fun, but just do it with control. All right. So if you are deciding to have some drinks with clients, colleagues, business partners, etc., do it with control. All right. Because I think sometimes, especially if you are coming from an environment where maybe you've got a family and, you might be with obviously some guys, for example, and it's sort of like, it feels like a little bit of a holiday mentality sometimes, when you are, you've worked hard, it's sort of like that work hard, play hard. But if it's going to make you feel like a sack of shit for days afterwards or impact your performance, then is it really worth it? And then lastly, I suppose it ties in with number 14, is don't be a sheep. Don't be a sheep. All right? A great example of this, and I'll bring him up again, Mustafa, because for me, I've never worked with a client who travels as much as him, but has still maintained ridiculous progress, irrelevant. I remember Mustafa for a number of years, hence, why he'd accumulated more body fat than he wanted to, just through sheer habit, all right, at so many business meetings and dinners. The natural thing was to drink a couple of glasses of wine every single engagement, every single night. And thinking the accumulation of calories, right, and even little bits of fatigue that he would have felt the next day if you're having wine every night on your business trips, all right? But when Mustafa was trying to break the pattern of this cycle, it took, uncomfortable conversations to start with, and I know Mustafa, he's just very black and white, when he's at a dinner table and say if he's got the whole of his team or colleagues or clients maybe drinking and they say, say to him, why aren't you drinking? He puts the question on them and says, why are you drinking? Why are you drinking? Like, I think, if you're around great colleagues, great clients, they shouldn't really give two shits whether you drink or not, or how much you drink. Why should it bother them what you eat and how much you drink? But sometimes we just need to be stronger and just fucking tell people, look, I value health. I want to be sharp tomorrow. You can still engage in great conversation, but don't be a sheep, all right? Because I know Mustafa and a lot of my top guys, they certainly aren't, all right? And they still grow with their business. They still build great rapport with their clients and their team, okay? And if anything now, they've gone to another level because they've got more energy, all right? So that's the 15. And then 2 questions, as I always like to end with most of these podcasts. When you are stuck with any decision, all right, because I know I've just chucked a lot at you there to think about, but when you are stuck with any decision, a great question is this: what would my best future self say, do, or choose in this situation? It's such a powerful question when you are ever feeling like emotional friction with what decision to make. What would my best future self say, do, or choose in this situation? All right, it just centers your focus on maybe what you want and is more likely to complement how you want to look and feel as opposed to the opposite. Then number 2, from my 15 tips, what are the top 3 from that list that moving forward you want to make as your travel non-negotiables? All right, if you've listened to my podcast, frequently now, you'll know I'm a very straight shooter, but it's only from a place because I want to serve, I want to help, try and make you think better, train better, look better, of course, the way I do with my clients, but nothing's going to change until you actually implement something. So from my 15, which 3 resonated most? Which 3 do you think if you implemented from a thought process or a habit or a planning perspective would help you stay in shape most when you travel, help you be consistent year round, all right? And then a quote to finish. It's a James Clear quote from Atomic Habits, a great book. If you've never listened to it, I think this guy is an absolute machine when it comes to habits, but this quote always stuck by me. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. So are you a professional or are you an amateur? Are you going to let your schedule and circumstances you can't control you? Or are you going to take charge with the way you think, the way you plan, and the way you set up your weeks, your weekends, and your months, maybe when you travel a bit more? Because that's what true high performers do, all right? And if some of my clients who are in their 40s and 50s, right, can do it with families, with ridiculous schedules, then I know you can do. But it's just, I want to be that person that positively challenges you to step up and take action, okay? So thank you so much, as always, and I will see you next time.